Okay, let's talk about how to get a job. And all the usual job interview stuff applies. I'm not going to talk about how to get the interview and how to get connected with the jobs in this talk. There are other places where we're going to talk about working with recruiters and working with LinkedIn and so on. I'm talking about like at the actual interview. Let's say you got hooked up with a position, you get invited for an interview. These days, the interview could be via Zoom. It could be in person. There's various different ways it can go nowadays. All the usual job interview stuff applies. You know, be professional, dress appropriately, be on time, be prepared, all that stuff. I'm not here to tell you about all the basic stuff. I'm going to try to cover the security and IT specific stuff. And again, you might be getting into a non-security IT job to learn the basics and work your way up to a security job, or you may be interviewing for a security job at this point straight away, or maybe you've worked up to it. In any case, as I have mentioned before, really the most important thing is to have passion. Enjoy what you do. When you go into the interview, you can't be there like, yeah, I kind of want a job, or yeah, this looks cool, or whatever, be enthusiastic, act like you want to be there, act like you want to work for the company, act like you love being in the security business. And again, I hope you really do love being in the security or IT business, because as I've said before, if you don't have passion for the job and you're just there for a paycheck, you're going to have a bad time. It's going to be a lot harder. But yes, number one is have passion and enjoy what you do. Now, there are some very good videos, and if I've not pointed you to these videos yet anywhere else in this course, I will do that now. There is a very good YouTube channel, and I am going to link to it somewhere in the resources that come with this course. Here we have the InfoSec YouTube channel. This is InfoSec Institute, I believe. I actually took a CISSP boot camp from these guys coincidentally, and it was pretty good, but I really had so much experience going into it that this was just kind of a helpful refresher. I am not necessarily endorsing their boot camp or anything, but yeah, this is their YouTube channel. They have this thing called the Cyberwork Podcast. They have a YouTube video, very short, just 5.5 minutes, called Cybersecurity Interview Tips. And here they interview a cybersecurity hiring manager, such as myself, and he tells you a number of good things about, how to get the job, what they're looking for. I recommend it. There are also, while we're here on this YouTube channel, I recommend that you go down and subscribe to their channel and look at all the other videos. How to become a cybersecurity project manager, right? Top 50 cybersecurity interview questions. Actually, that's by somebody else. Anyway, that could be a good one. I'm really looking for the videos on the InfoSec channel. What does a cybersecurity beginner do? They just recently published that video. There's lots of good job-oriented type videos on this YouTube channel, which are relevant to this course and what you're doing. So check that out. Let's go look at, some more general tips. Okay. Don't overly concern yourself with restrictive job requirements. You can apply for a job even if you don't necessarily know all the technologies. The thing is to show them in the interview that you are a fast learner, right? So when they're asking you questions and you're having this conversation, and that's really what it often is, especially as you advance in your career. Once you get some experience and you've got a good resume and you've worked on a lot of stuff, they're mostly interested in knowing that you'll be a good person to work with. Once if you've already demonstrated the technical skills, but if you have not demonstrated the technical skills and you're just getting started, show them that you're a fast learner. Work in a story somewhere during the interview about how you learned something fast. I picked up a book on Python, went through it, in a week and had some basic stuff working, and I got it figured out real quick. Or if you've done some other IT project where you can say you picked it up and you dove in and you had all the basics down in just a few days and you were doing productive stuff with it. That's really good. So work in a story somewhere about how you learn something fast. They often like to see your portfolio of work. If you're an artist, if you're a graphic designer, if you're some sort of marketing person, you do marketing graphics and things like that. Artists generally have a portfolio, something they can show of the works that they've done. Your portfolio will be your resume and GitHub. Anytime you write a config, anytime you write some code, even something relatively small, it doesn't even have to be good. It doesn't have to be the prettiest code and perfect in every way. Anything, use GitHub. Anytime you write something, check it into GitHub, save it there in a public repository, and then you can actually point interviewers, potential employers, at that repository as proof that you've done some work, that you've written some software, that you've written some configs, that you've written some Terraform code to show infrastructure as code, all that kind of stuff. Use GitHub for everything. It's also your backup, right? If your local machine gets wiped out, you can just check it out again from GitHub. It's a good practice. It's part of DevSecOps. Git is a critical tool to know. So yeah, anytime you do anything, write any code, configs, whatever, send it to GitHub, and you can link to that from your resume, or you can point interview panels or whoever at your code. A lot of the stuff you develop in your career will be proprietary and property of your employer, so you cannot share it. But if you write your own website, you write some of your own code to do anything, upload it to GitHub. And then you can spend as much time as possible talking about code you wrote. You are the expert on your own code. It's a good way to kind of direct the conversation to something that that you're the expert at, and that can really help you out. Sometimes you'll be given whiteboard programming challenges. I hate these things. And if you can demonstrate some of your own code, maybe that would help you to avoid it. And if you don't know, a whiteboard programming challenge is where you go into an interview and at some point they put you in front of a whiteboard and say, write some code that does this, XYZ. FizzBuzz is a classic example. And you can FizzBuzz coding example. If you Google that, you'll see what I mean. It's a common programming challenge. In fact, it's so common, I don't even know that they would be assigning that anymore because everybody studies it seems like. But yeah, I hate whiteboarding coding challenges. I can never remember the syntax. It's just makes you nervous, and it's a whole lot easier to do things when you're actually in front of a keyboard and writing real software. But if you bring in your own code, if you have your own GitHub to point to, maybe you can avoid that and you can spend time talking about something you're an expert at, which is your own code. So there's also from InfoSec Institute, or just InfoSec is again what the YouTube channel is called. Let's go back over there. There's this also, extracurricular activities to strengthen your cybersecurity resume. Now, I've not looked at this video in a little while. I don't remember what all they cover in here. Again, it's a short video, but you will want to be participating in your local cybersecurity community. Go to cons, go to DEF CON, go to your local B-Sides or your, whatever your local Cloud Security Alliance or ISACA, things like that. That's all good. Those are good places to make connections and learn things, and you can put some of those things on your resume. Personal cybersecurity programming projects. If you run your own Linux server, harden it, set up SSH public key auth, all kinds of things. Your own stuff you do at home, your own projects are all very good. This video has a number of other suggestions. There are things you can do to make yourself stand out. And that's really what you want to do. You want to stand out from the crowd, right? If you want to be hired for the position. Let's see. You want to demonstrate good communication skills, right? You are not applying for a job to be a burger flipper at McDonald's. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We need burger flippers. I like to eat. But in a cybersecurity role or even an IT role in general, communication is important. You need to be able to explain how things work. You need to be able to explain why patching your servers is a good idea in language the business will understand in a calm, cool, and professional way. You need to be able to make your case, make management aware of what the risks are and how you're going to mitigate them and why this is worth doing. Knowing how to write and speak is important. Writing is important because, for example, you may be asked to, well, for example, I have recently been asked to do a ransomware gap analysis for a very large, multi-tens of billion market cap, publicly traded company. And I looked at all the aspects of their business as far as their technology, their data goes, and I wrote up my findings and recommendations. It was a fairly high-level treatment. It was about a 10-page paper, but you got to make sure you spell everything correctly. You got to make sure that your grammar is professional. And most importantly, you need to be able to effectively communicate the ideas. They may have had some gaps in their backups. I have to be able to explain that without offending the people who currently run the backups, but while making management understand that this is a risk that needs to be addressed. So writing is important. You will do a lot of writing. Even red team, I call them troglodytes, and not necessarily in an offensive way, but there are, that word probably sounds kind of offensive. That's not a pretty word. But anyway, it's, people who just want to hack on the computer in a dark room with, their ski mask and hacker gloves on. They're antisocial. They just want to, pop shells and break into computers. Maybe entirely legitimately. It's sanctioned. They're a part of an official red team. That's all great. But you need someone who knows how to write up the results, how to present the results to clients, how to sell potential clients on your value, right? Even at the end of every red team engagement, there's a report that needs to be written up. And you would like that report to be as effective and persuasive and professional as possible. You want to be called back next quarter, next year, next month, whatever their pen test schedule is, to do the work again. You want to be able to communicate with other potential clients that you are worth employing or hiring. So that all requires communication skills, particularly writing skills at the end of a red team engagement. Speaking skills are good also. You need to be able to possibly, once you get further along in your career, like when you're doing the kind of stuff I'm doing, you may be called to present in front of the board and explain the gaps in the cybersecurity program and why they need to be addressed. You might want to give presentations. Oh, we were talking about, speaking of presentations and speaking of extracurricular activities, one thing that I do is I give presentations. I love to give talks. And I'll do kind of like what I'm doing here with you. I'll prepare an outline of what I want to speak about. I'll prepare my slides, my browser windows, my whatever it is that I'm going to demonstrate, and give a talk on it. So you need to be able to communicate effectively without a lot of crutch words and appear professionally. And I just said, don't do that. So there are a lot of communication skills involved. And if you can express these during the interview, if you can demonstrate these kind of communication skills during the interview, that'll go a long way. You want to be, I call it chill, easygoing. You want to be a friendly person that people will want to work with. Quite often, I've done interviews where after I've been hired for the job, they've told me that one of the things that they're looking for, one of the most important things that they're doing in an interview process is, as one guy put it to me, screening out the a-holes, right? They want to hire someone who's going to be good to work with. So that is very important. You need to be interested in what's actually good for the business. And that's generally all about risk management. So those are some of the ways to get the job in an interview. And again, all the usual interview stuff applies. Be on time, dress nicely, all that. But especially in a cybersecurity or IT in general interview, again, have passion, have a portfolio. Don't worry about overly restrictive job requirements. Just show them that you're a fast learner. If you don't have all the skills they're looking for or experience in all the technologies they're looking for, that's really not necessary. Show them that you're a fast learner and you've got a shot. Do some of these activities to strengthen your resume. Just have something to talk about in the interview. Have your GitHub. And again, be pragmatic about security. Be the person they want to work with and be interested in what's actually good for the business. Let's take a look at a Reddit post that I found to be interesting. Let's go over this. So there is a cybersecurity subreddit, which is good. It's r/cybersecurity. And we are going to do a separate video about the resume. But here they says the resume can make or break your chance of an interview. The interview is where you can differentiate yourself from other candidates. That's all true. Let's see. If your resume is 1 to 2 pages, I'll absolutely look at the entire thing. If your interview is more than 10 pages, I won't look at it at all. Now, yeah, I'm going to talk about that more in the resume video. But suffice it to say that the more experience you have, the more liberty you have to have a longer resume. My resume is already a bit on the long side. I think it's more than 2 pages, but it does me very well. But yeah, if you're looking to stand out, be concise, only put things on a resume that you can support in an interview. Yes, do not lie on your resume. I've read interview horror stories where somebody claimed I don't remember what the specific example was, but somebody claimed they had Linux skills, right? For example, and then they were asked, "Oh, what's your favorite Linux distribution?" And the candidate could not even name one. That's horrible. That's an instant, thank you for your time. Have a nice day. That's the end. That could be an interview ender right there. Don't do that. The interview is where you can expound on your skills. Yes, there's an open dialogue in an interview. And again, it's more of a conversation. And if you can show off, steer the conversation towards the things you're good at without doing so too obviously, that's good. Again, they'll ask things like, what was your responsibility? What have you contributed? What activities did you do? Interview is about you, your knowledge and experience. Yes. Don't lie or, here he writes, don't lie or bullshit in an interview. Now, I realize I just said a swear word there. In an actual interview, don't do that. Be professional, right? Biggie. And this goes for any kind of interview, but have questions prepared for the interviewer. Right? At the end of every interview, they will ask, okay, what questions do you have for me? Do some research, have some standard questions that you always ask. One of the things I always ask, how big is the team I'll be working with? Who will I be working with most directly? Will I be reporting to you or who? To whom would I be reporting? How long has this team been established? Sometimes you'll be going into an old environment with lots of process and procedures and everything already set up. Sometimes you'll be going into a total greenfield situation, as they say, where you'll be one of the people defining all that stuff and setting up the systems. That's all good stuff to know. You can use those. Those are good questions. Put those in your standard bank of questions to always ask at the end of every interview. And then it would be good if you could do some research on the company beforehand. You know, if a company is in the healthcare space, I'll ask them something about maybe their HIPAA program. Do they have a compliance department to ensure their HIPAA compliance? Is that separate from the security department? Or, you know, there can be some questions specific to the company and their industry that you can ask. So I always have a few standard questions that I ask everybody, and then I try to come up with one or two questions about, you know, their company in particular. And as the interview progresses, they might remind me of things that I should be asking for. Ask for feedback on the interview if when you follow up. Now, this guy suggests that. I find that companies are very reluctant to offer any kind of feedback just because they don't want to get sued in the event they don't hire you and they said something in the feedback that might be construed as discriminatory or something. A pet peeve he mentions, Kali is an operating system, not a pen testing tool. Linux is an operating system. Kali is a distribution of Linux, in my opinion. But anyway, yeah, be careful how you talk about Kali Linux and how you know, using cool hacker jargon and things like that. You know, it could tip them off about your zero. Let's see, it says, which tells me zero about your knowledge or experience. Okay. I'll explain the Kali comment here. He says, yeah, Kali's got a bunch of different tools in it, and that's good to know, but make sure you know what you're talking about. And I guess that's pretty generic. That kind of goes with everything, right? But there are some tips on what to do in the interview.